All right. Hey, gang, hold on one second here. We got Dave Bacon and Tiffany Vague with us today, and we're going to be talking rod building 101 again, rod building 102, rod building 400, rod building 500. We're going to be talking about rod building and where you can get your rods and what you want to do with your rods and all the different things that have to do with rod building. And once again, I'm just going to kind of kick back because really, I don't really know anything about rod building except I love a good rod in my hands.
Boy, that's what it comes down to, doesn't it? You know, if you got a good rod in your hands, you know it. And it makes just an amazing difference in how you're able to fish. And by that, I mean, like, present baits or lures to the desired recipients, which are very fishy. And then once you have them on, yeah, how do you deal with them? And part of what I'm going to talk about today, after Captain Tiffany does her thing, we sure have a lot of captains here, is a little bit about that. It's kind of how to fish them, how to battle fish with them, how to treat your body with them, and it all comes down to, well, how do you pick what kind of or what length of blank for yourself or for someone else building for them to start with.
Right. I think of it as an extension of my hands or my well, yeah, for lack of a better word, extension of my hands. So we'll just go with that.
Tiffany, you've got a banner behind you, and it says vague rods.
Oh, yeah.
It does have one glaring error.
What is that?
That everybody who's looking at it needs to know about. It's vaguerods.net, not vaguerods.com.
Right.
Vaguerods.net, because we use nets to fish with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a surprise to show Captain Dave Hansen. Before I show him this, Captain David Bacon, why don't we talk about rods in the type of rods and whatnot, so that Captain Dave Hansen can stir a little bit to wonder what I've got going on here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's a little bit kind and a little bit mean of you all at the same time.
Absolutely.
I've known her for a while now, and this is very much like her, you know.
Perfect. Well, I'm getting to know her very well, so this will be good.
Okay, I want to talk about how the heck do you decide what length of rod to build, either for yourself or for somebody else. And the length of the rod matters when it comes to a whole lot of different things. And let me illustrate that with a story. There's a feller that had Captain Tiffany build like 4 rods for his boat. And he came in to the tackle store at the time and said, okay, look, I just bought me a boat. We said, hey, congratulations. You know, you just had one of those 2 happiest days of a boat owner's life. You know, this is great. And so he started talking about what kind of fishing he wants to do and all of that, and in different applications, different places, you know, boiler rock bathroom and tuna and whatnot, just all kinds of things, right? So he knew exactly what he wanted. He had put some thought into this. He wanted like a 7.5 foot series of rods, and you know, with the following components and build on the following blank, and you know, the rear grip and the foregrip and the artwork design and everything else. You know, I mean, he really came in with a pretty complete package. So we said, okay, nice to work with somebody that knows what they want. So she built these 4 rods for him, and he loved them. And he had this perfect place on the boat, a nice secure place. Boat was down in the harbor in a slip, and a nice secure place to put them where they'd be locked up and all of that. And he took these rods down there and found out that space he had for those rods would handle a rod up to about 6'9". So here he is with these 7.5 foot rods going, Well, drat. So those rods rode in his truck with him every single day that he went to his boat and back home again. And so, the point there is, the point of this story is, it's not only about the way you fish. You really need to take other things into consideration, like, where do you need to put these rods? And that can be on the boat, that could be on the wall in a room that you're going to keep them in, that, the room is 8 foot, so that 9-foot rod ain't quite going to do it. You need to think about these things. But other than that, let's talk about how you decide how a rod supports your fishing. Now, I'm going to kind of bring it down to an all too simplistic truth, but then give some rationale for that. The all too simplistic truth is that the longer the rod and the better the action, more action, the easier it is to present baits and lures to fish, like in a casting situation. However, the shorter and stiffer that rod is, the more your back is going to like it. Because first you have to present a bait or a lure, which might be a small anchovy cast out to a kelp bed, or just cast out well away from the boat when the tuna are swirling around, but they're not quite coming real close to the boat. So you have to be able to cast, which a longer rod is great for. And then when you get bit, you set that hook and realize that there seems to be something akin to a freight train on the other end of your line. Well, then you wish you had a much shorter, sturdier rod. I always figured the greatest invention I could make, which I never have, would be a way to be able to cast with one rod to hook a fish and then fight that fish with a different rod. I mean, that would be wonderful. That would solve so many problems, but I haven't yet figured out how to do that. But to break down the rationale behind that overly simplistic truth is that, if you need to cast an anchovy well out away from the boat, boy, does it help to have like an 8 foot, 8.5, 9-foot rod with fairly light to medium action. And you will find that you will get that anchovy out further than just about anybody else around. And chances of getting bit increase dramatically. And so, there's a good argument for going with that longer, slimmer, more action rod, because, well, the simple reality is you're going to get bit more. And, getting bit more is kind of where it all starts when you want to bring some fish home. On the other hand, when you cast that anchovy, a fur piece out away from the boat with that 8.5 foot rod with light to medium action, and you get bit, you're going to be out this a while. You're going to go around the boat 3 times, which means your chances of tangling with other people's lines, some of whom will have fish on there, go up dramatically. And with that length of time in the water and that great of potential chance of tangling with people, the realistic chances of you bringing that fish in goes down. Okay. Now, at the same time, once you had the fish on, if you could be fishing with a 6.5 foot rod with a pretty strong backbone, oh, you can muscle that fish in to some degree. I mean, many fish have soft spots in their mouths. You don't want to pull a hook free. You don't want to break your line. So you have to mind your P's and Q's. One day I might tell you where P's and Q's came from. That's an interesting story. But at any rate, you have to be careful not to overstroke that fish for fear you break something like your line or pull the hook free. But with a shorter, stiffer rod, boy, can you fight that fish better. So what's the solution here? realistically, and experience teaches that you got to find kind of a happy medium. You got to find a rod that will cast an anchovy. Of course, not as far as that 8.5 footer light action will, but will get it far enough away from the boat to get bit. And so you're probably going to end up with something like a 7 to 7.5 foot rod. And I, because casting is important and you don't know in advance what size the bait is, the lighter the bait, the harder it is to cast far, then I might suggest that 7.5 foot as being a good what? It's going to serve the multi-functions better than either one of the extremes would. And then go with kind of a medium action, because you know that you're going to kind of stress test that rod if it happens to be that freight train that you're hooked up with, or that submarine, or whatever it is that your hook managed to find down there. And so you're going to stress test that rod. So you need to have some backbone. So you're going to go with a medium to heavy action. And that's for many of our tuna and yellowtail and dorado situations where we're working with, 10 to 30 or 40 pound fish. Of course, when you start getting up into the into the larger grade bluefin and whatnot, now we're talking a different ball game entirely. And for those bigger units, you may not be casting quite the same way. You may be doing more drop down. So, there you're going to end up with kind of a shorter and heavier stick. Now that's the offshore story. But if we move inshore and move into one of my absolute favorite places, which is Boiler Rocks at the islands, where the waves are crashing over Boiler Rocks and whitewater around, and the calico bass, and these are mean calico bass that live in those Boiler Rocks. I call them junkyard bass. They're just mean, and they're tough, and they're fun. But there, you've got a total casting situation. There, you need to get a swim bait or anchovy way, like within a foot or two of those rocks. And you'll find from one boat owner to the next, their willingness to get their boat in very close to those rocks changes dramatically. Someone with twin engines and are very good at using them might feel comfortable getting much closer than someone with a single engine and maybe not as much experience. So therefore, you have to be prepared to make those super long casts. In this situation, I like me a 9-foot rod. I like a 9-foot parabolic rod, because it will send that 4, 5-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch swim bait out there a good country mile. Not only can I cast right near the Boiler Rocks, but I can actually cast into those sea caves. You kind of have to learn how to do a line drive cast instead of a high arcing cast. But you can do it, just takes practice. And when you cast inside those sea caves, there's some special monsters that await in there. I knew one had a relationship with that fish for a long time. Tiffany will remember him. We named him. He was called Billy Bad Bass. And we saw probably 18 different people lose that fish. Tough fish and a tight spot to get into. But here, casting is kind of everything. You have to do that. And then, the calicos may go into kelp, but they don't always go around a rock if they could. So, you don't need as much backbone as you do on, say, a larger offshore fish. So the parabolic and the light to medium action, maybe a 10 to 20 pound stick is perfect for me. But that long stick, that 9-footer, really allows me to get that out there a long distance. Now, on that same trip, after you do some of that, you decide, well, that was fun. We let most of those calicos go because they're a precious resource, so they're only available to us recreational anglers. Sometimes we'll maybe save a few, especially the ones that were deep hooked or something like that, but we let most of them go. And it's awful nice to take some fish home for dinner, so we might stop off and do either some shallow water or deep water rock fishing, depending on the time of year and what the regulations say. So here, The same stick just isn't going to work for that too. So you need another stick. And for rock fishing in general, I like 20 to 40 pound stick. That's just kind of ideal. You drop it down there deep and you get hung up on a rock, and you need to be able to work on that, but please don't bend that rod double and high stick it when you're hung up on a rock on the bottom, or you will break that rod. You find that, experience teaches when your rod is out there and the line's down and hung up on a rock, you do this fast rocking action and you're trying to make the weight or the jig kind of pop off of that rock, and that works way better than trying to pull that thing. And if you do have to pull it, don't make your rod take that pressure. Put on gloves, grab your line well ahead of the rod, and pull it up by hand. Don't break your rod by high sticking trying to pull it off of a rock. But here for this kind of fishing, if you're like specializing in big lingcod, which I always call lingosaur, the only fish I know nicknamed after a dinosaur, and for good reason. Well, here you need some rod with a backbone, because you got to fish maybe deep. You got to fish real close to those rocks, within a foot, 2 feet at most of those rocks. And then that lingcod is going to blast out, turn around, bulldog back into his lair, flare his gill plates, and he's just stuck in those rocks. Now you got to try and hope the boat is in the right position to pull him out of the rocks instead of your line wrapping over the top of the rock and things like that. But here you need a little stiffer rod, but 20 to 40 is usually sufficient. You can go 20 to 50. I use the 20 to 50 bacon sticks made by Capt and Tiffany as my signature series in that situation, as well as bounce balling for halibut, and as well as fishing for the tanker white sea bass we have along the coast and at the islands. But those are some of the situations in the saltwater, and this podcast is called Your Saltwater Guide. But I will venture a little bit into freshwater, just long enough to say that, hey, if you've got a bass boat, and I hope you do because they're fun and they're great to fish from, now your length of rod also needs to consider things like what we discussed at first. Where do you have to put it? And most folks put them down on the deck, or have rod hangers under the gunnel. But here, in that size of a boat, you've got limitations of how long of a rod that you can really adequately store without that rod leaning up against something and becoming a danger to be broken. You want to make some long casts, so longer is better. But you also have to pull bass out of some pretty touchy spots, like a lot of weeds and things like that. So here, I'm going to suggest you go 6 to 7 feet, but really measure the area in your boat where you have to put them all first, and remember to calculate where you need to put your rods in your figuring about how long your rod needs to be. And this subject is near and dear to my heart, and I could probably talk on it for hours, but I shouldn't do that. That wouldn't be quite right. So I'll turn that back over to Tiffany while I try and remember what it was that I was going to tell you a story about. And then maybe I'll come back in for that story. Anybody remember?
No.
See how quick we all forget?
Yes. Yes. Hey, Tiffany, real quick, we're going to show a commercial real quick.
Okay.
And then we're going to get on to this. I absolutely love boiler rock fishing. It's my favorite fishing in the whole world. I'd rather boiler rock fish than anything else. I totally agree with David. They are just the most trickiest, hardest fish to catch. And if you can consistently catch 5 and 6 pound bass in the rocks, boiler rock fishing, you can catch anything that swims pretty much. But watch this real quick and then we'll get back to this. So hold on one second here while I look for this video. I got it right here. Here we go. Well, alrighty, gang, fishingbooker.com. If you're anywhere on the planet and you want to go fishing, and I know y'all do, or you wouldn't be watching this show, wherever you are, go to fishingbooker.com, put in how many people you have and exactly where you're at, and they'll find a boat. They'll find the best guides on the planet to take you out fishing to make your vacation even more than it already is. Fishingbooker.com has a guide and a boat for you and your family. Go to fishingbooker.com, and at the end of this, look at the QR code. Use that QR code, and you'll save $50 off your next Fishing Booker trip. So check this out, gang. Fishingbooker.com has a boat and a trip ready for you wherever you are on the planet Earth, and you can save 50% off on your next charter or your next guide trip just by simply using that QR code that's on the screen right now. Save $50 on your next trip, and you guys will not be disappointed if you use Fishing Booker, because some of the biggest names in the industry are hooked up to Fishing Booker in Southern California. And then around the United States and around the world, there's more boats than you can imagine, more people than you can imagine. So just check out fishingbooker.com for any trip that you're going on, wherever you're traveling to. You can get what you're looking for with fishingbooker.com and book the next fishing trip of a lifetime. And then as far as we go, I am totally stoked to be on here with Dave and Tiffany today, learning more about these fishing rods and reels. Thank you very much for watching me for so long, and thank you very much for being a part of the Saltwater Guide friends and family group. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody. And let's kick back and listen to Tiffany now.
Hello, everybody. When can we get a YSWG rod is what John Stanley had asked. And actually, I just got released. I'm working on the first section of the computerized. So I want to show you guys what I'm working on. So give me just a few seconds here for me to turn this camera on.
Pretty exciting news. I'm trying to see it. Where did it go?
I'm hiding it.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to pull it up real quick. This is the very first step. Let's see if you guys can see that. The very first step right here is what I'm working on, the design that's going to be on the rod. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be weaving it. But before you start weaving, you have to create the design and create the pattern. So basically what I'll be doing here, this is a smaller percentage of what you can see. When you're going to be weaving, you've got to pull it up to about 100, and it's going to look really big, and you're not going to be able to see the design yet because you got to work on each piece. And here's where I start working on it, and you can see it's going to have the Saltwater Guide, Captain Dave Hansen on it. And lots of people start weaving differently. Some people will, if it's a fish, they'll start at the eye and work its way around, like here's an eye. Some people like to work from left to right or right to left. A lot of times when you put a weave inside, the picture of what you're going to do, you need to make sure, one of the things that I do, it's not like you have to, but I make sure that the ends will be matching up here. Like for instance, if you go down here, you see how this part is not all the way up to the first row, because you got rows here. You've got 1 to 20 going down from here to here. Then you've got 240 going across. That's going to be the length, and that's going to be the width, and you're always going to start your weave on this end. So I have to basically nudge it with this little dot here until I can get the edge, starting with your first row, which is row 1. Now, this is a process. This is not something that you can whip out in one single day until you've been doing it over and over and over again. You've got the knack, everything down. Then you can start doing the computer type work for your weave jobs within a couple of hours. Just depending on, you know, how many color changes you're going to do will pretty much differ, you know, how it is, because you have to color each of these squares in. It's not just you take the picture, upload it, and print it out and create your left list. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to, you know, color in each square. Now, there's different tricks that Doc Ski taught me, because when I first started weaving, I didn't know how to control the mouse, so I was coloring in each square one at a time like this, and that will take you hours. What he taught me was, let me erase that real quick, is if you have a whole section here of one color that you're going to use, you can click on here, drag the mouse for however length you want, unclick it, you'll click it. The one click is with your pointer finger, the left side of your mouse, right side, then see right here where it says fill in selected area? You click in that and see, oops, I got part of over Dave's letter. So I'm going to erase that and I'm just going to clear that section that I did. And we're looking at the beginning steps of this. This will take me a few hours to do. We don't have a few hours on here. So I'll just continue on working on this and showing you different things real quick because like I said, this is going to take a while. This is a letter E, as you can see. And so I'm going to need to change colors. So over here on the left-hand side, there's a whole color grid that I have inserted in. So I'm going to scroll down till I find black, because on Dave's logo, the letter E is in black, and I'm just going to create an E. And later on, I will clean it up. And there's my little E. So that's what I'm working on. We are actually starting the process of Your Saltwater Guides fishing rods, customized, and that's what we're going to be doing. And each week I'm going to show you little bits of what I'm doing on it so that you can kind of get an idea. And then I'm also going to be filming it and doing a beginning to end video for Dave so he can show you when it's all completed.
How cool is that? That is pretty badass.
So I got the E in your name.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to add to her comments is I'm going to say correct, because at one point she said she could do this in a couple hours. A couple hours might be the lunch break in the middle of the day in which she does this. Okay. It's probably going to take more than a couple of hours. And at one point in there, she said after some practice, you could do that rod in a day. You know, I've watched her build a whole lot of rods. And when it comes to doing detail work like this with weaving and everything, it just needs to be perfect on that rod. It's not a day's project. It's honestly much, much more than a day. She might be able to. Yeah, she might be able to do multiple rods kind of at the same time, because then you can have one drying while you have one doing something else. You can work on a weave on one while you're working on wrapping guides or putting, you know, maybe a ReelQuick reel seat or something like that on another one. So you can kind of have some simultaneous efforts going on, but the length of time for that rod is more than a day.
I'm talking about putting the computer work, as you can get that done in a day. I can do it in a couple of hours, but if I have to start the whole thing and just concentrate straight on that, but for the whole rod from start to finish, about a week and a half to 2 weeks top if you want a really good rod.
Well, we want a really good rod. Hey, gang, I want to let you all know tomorrow I have my guru dude, my buddy, my pal, Greg Cruz is going to join me tomorrow on my show. We're going to be talking about what it was like in the very beginning of Dana Wharf Sport Fishing. He was down there in the beginning. He's going to be my guru guy to talk to, and I'm super excited to have you on here, Greg. It's going to be spectacular tomorrow. If you guys want to learn about some of Dave Hansen's childhood memories, Greg Cruz will be here to talk about it tomorrow. It's going to be pretty spectacular. I just saw him on here right now, so I thought I'd throw that out there. But go ahead, Tiffany, tell us more about this. This is pretty exciting. I'm pretty fired up.
From this part, what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day is basically just creating, like I showed you, square to square, more like dot to dot work, putting all the different colors in, coloring in the squares, and then having that one picture. Then from there, the computer will create the left list where I have to set up the whole weave on the blank and start that process. And so it's time consuming, but some people on here were saying about carpal tunnel being bursted. Yeah, your hands will start hurting after a while, but it's okay.
Yeah, you got to charge extra per rod. That's true.
I was laughing at that. I was like, this is for Captain Dave Hansen. You want me to charge him extra?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Greg Cruz was way after the Taco Bell story. That came way beyond that. This is back to the very basics of Dave when he was a little kid and Greg was a little kid, and we were working down in the harbor, and it was quite spectacular. But tell us more about this rod, because I'm pretty fired up and I'm excited to learn about it.
Well, this rod is going to be, there's going to be a couple different rods, different styles for different types of fishing. Your rod, we went over what you wanted to fish for. The grips are going to be kind of unique. It's a Tiffany grip on it. I don't know if you've seen the Tiffany grip, but it can be used for all sorts of different styles of fishing, whether you want to do it on a rail rod, you want it to be a stand-up rod. It's pretty much a universal rod.
Yeah, I don't want nothing to do with rail rods.
No, I'm just saying the Tiffany grip you can use pretty much for anything.
I'm going to add to that. We found that people are just loving this Tiffany grip that she does, because no one else does that. When she was in the world rod building competition, the judges from around the world said, we've never seen anything like this. And the thing about the Tiffany grip is, no matter how cold and wet and slimy your hands get, you will still have a grip on that rod. And that itself is just like pure magic. That's what we all want. And she mentioned rail rod just because, she can put it on a light rod that you would never use as a rail rod. But the Tiffany grip is so tough and durable that it can stand up to use as a rail rod, rubbing against the rail.
Got it. Hey, Tiffany or Dave, do you have one of those Tiffany grips with you right now?
No, it just walked out the door, but I can pull up one and show you. I can pull up a picture of one and show you.
Okay.
It just walked out the door. Somehow that statement fascinates me.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
What kind of rods do you build, Tiffany?
Yeah.
They fish by themselves. It just brings the fish home to you. It just does all sorts of stuff.
You don't have a rod that fishes by itself.
It was somebody is actually a golfer asked me to make this the Tiffany grip on his golf club because he liked the feel of it when he was fishing, and so I made him one for the golf club. So I mean, it's pretty universal on different types of tools, I'll call it.
He wasn't fishing with the golf club, was he?
You know, I've thought about putting guides on it where, because, you know, every person I see when we do golf tournaments for CCA, there's that pond, right? And every golf club I hear, or golf country or golfing place has a pond. So, and then you get to the pond.
You can tell a true golfer, Dave. Golfing. Go to the golfing place.
Yeah, put some guides on that rod. Put a ReelQuick reel seat on there somewhere, and yeah, golf all day. Except when you get to the pond, you use it for fishing. I like it.
Though my thought was, oh gosh, remember the movie Goonies? And the little guy Data that always came up with these inventions that never really went anywhere and always was screwing up everywhere. That was the first thing that came to my place, as a golf club that turns into a fishing rod. So when they're golfing and they have to wait their turn, and it just happens to be right next to that pond, they can turn around and use it as a fishing rod and catch fish, and then continue on their way for, you know, golfing.
There you go.
Tiffany, after you finish talking about that rod, I just want to note that you got a very sincere, serious question that came up on the chat. And so remember that question after you're done talking about Dave's rod. Okay.
Will do. Here's I'm going to send this to you, Dave,
and I'll throw it up while you're talking.
Yeah, now this is not the color I'm going to be doing on Captain David Hansen. It's a different color, but this one you can really see it, and this is the color I have.
May take a minute or two to come over to you over the email because it's an image.
And we are in Cabo, and you're up in beautiful Ventura.
What's the longest rod project have I done, like ever? And why did it take so long to complete? Are you talking about the length of rod, or are you talking about the longest project I've ever done, period, no matter the length?
Longest project you've ever done.
The longest rod project I've ever done was probably either my road trip from here to North Carolina, where I had to stop and work on this rod. I end up having to stay in one state for a couple of days before I could move on. Yeah, that took days and days to do. It was an original dream catcher that I made, and it was on a road trip on the way, like I said, to North Carolina. And that was because it was a tournament, a world international rod building tournament that I went to, and it had to be finished by the time I got there. So started working here. So I think that probably took me 3 or 4. I worked probably like 8 hours a day, so it took a while. Prior to that, when I first started, I would say 3 weeks it took me to do one rod, and that's when I first started.
And there have been a number of orders you've had for outfitting boats with rods of various sizes.
Yeah.
So I've seen those projects take you, weeks or more.
Yeah.
All the rods.
Like the one I had 15 rods.
Yeah, for a party boat. Yeah, that one took a little while. So that wasn't longest project for a single rod, but that was the longest project for an order, I guess we'll say.
I almost got it here, real close. We'll be up here in a couple seconds.
So somebody was saying, Fishing Matt Ryan was saying he used to fish the ponds at golf courses. That's good.
So that's it, right?
That is the Tiffany grip. That is all hand woven. it's a really tight woven grip. That thing is not going to go anywhere. It's like I said, it's tough enough that you can use it as a rail rod. You can use it as a stand-up rod. You can put it on pretty much anything, including golf clubs that I started doing for people. I mean, it lasts forever. It is, I call it heavy duty, even though you can put it on a trout rod.
There's another version she has too that is actually a type of fade, and there was a red and black one, I think, that we took a brief video of here recently. I wish she could send that to you so you could show that. It was with that fade. It's kind of spectacular.
Well, if they go on to my Instagram page, vaguerods.net, they can look at all sorts of designs that I've put on there and whatnot and really have fun.
Is that video on there?
I believe it is. I don't know if it's on the story right now or if it's on the actual, reel. But it's been put up on there, and I'm pretty sure it's now on a reel. But they can go on there or Facebook. I also put stuff on the Facebook page and whatnot. So, yeah, they can pretty much go anywhere.
Okay. Well, maybe we can find that video and offline during the week, send it to Dave so he can show it in an upcoming podcast.
Yeah.
I really like that thing.
Our classes have been going pretty good. Last week, I have to say, is one of the sections in the classes that are the most funniest. I see I have a few of the students that are in that class on here, and they'll probably are still laughing over it. There's a section that we learn about different types of butts. And you're learning about the material of butts of what goes on the rod, and then when they're picking out their components and what type of butt they want, we have to go into what type of butt you like. And everybody Lisa's laughing on this. I can just see her face laughing. You have to go into stuff like asking them, do you like a big butt? Do you like a little butt? Do you like thin butts? Do you like big round butts? Do you want fat butts? What kind of butt do you like? And going through this type of thing in the classes, it's like the most funniest thing, because first you get everyone's initial reaction, like, what? And then all of a sudden you can't hear them because everybody's on mute, but all you see is everybody doing this big belly laugh, and they're just going back and forth in their chair, just hysterically laughing. So I don't know how much they learn about the materials of the butt, the sizes and the shape, because everybody's laughing too loud or too much. So Lisa, if you can tell me if you guys learned anything about the butts, it'd be nice to know if I need to repeat it. It's all about the cushion. Yes.
It's all about the cushion.
So we have a lot of fun in the class with that. Yeah, the classes getting all their stuff, and this Sunday they're going to start working on their diamond wraps.
No way.
Yep, they're going to be working on diamond wraps. Last week we got into putting the components together. We have a makeup class this Saturday because a lot of people didn't get their components in. So I want to have the makeup class on Saturday so that I can work with them in putting their components on, so that the next day, which is Sunday, they can immediately start working on their diamond wraps.
How cool is that?
Hey, Jay Torrey just threw me hello, and so I just wanted to say hello back. Yep, it's been a while.
You never know who's going to show up on here, huh?
Yep.
Don't talk about the Tiffany grips and the butts at the same time.
Who says rod building can't be fun?
Right.
And Justin, who's also another one of my students, right now he's doing a chevron as we speak. So you better send me a picture of that, Justin.
And then I got a really good thing to add to this. My son, Riley, just received the rod from John at River Cats Tackle, and he called me up and he asked me, now you got to understand, he's super innocent. He asked me, is there something wrong with this frickin' rod? And I go, why? And he goes, well, the guides, they don't line up. He's got an acid wrap, and he was trying to figure out if John screwed up the rod sending it to him.
It's a fair question. It's a fair question.
It was a really fair question.
So was he not going to say anything to him? He was just going to go and try to figure out how to fish this and tell the guy, oh, he loves it, but not sure what to tell him, that thinking that he had really screwed up on his rod.
Oh yeah, he thought he screwed up big time. He's like, there's no way. He's never seen an acid wrap, so that's was
funny.
Brand new to him, and he didn't know what the heck was wrong with it. But he was, and I'm probably giving away his anonymity right now, and his mom's gonna smack the crap out of me. I had to just take back for a second, and I went, Riley. This is totally what it's supposed to be. This is it. It's what it's supposed to be. Because he awesome. He goes, look at this. This guy's Dave. He goes, Dad, look at this guy screwed up this rod, and I don't know how to tell him. And I'm like, no, here you go. It's supposed to be like this.
We'll be learning the acid wrap towards the end of the class of the 18-week, and then the next one starts October 4th, another 15-week class, and they learn the acid wrap in the big courses.
That's kind of important too. Another one coming right up. That's about a month and a few days away, and there's currently an early bird sign up going on. Tiffany has had some sign-ups already, and so we strongly encourage anyone that wants to take the class or have someone else take the class. Sign up for it pretty quick. Take advantage of the early bird special, and before the class gets too full, and she might decide to shut it down if it does.
Yeah, I like to cap it at 20 because after 20, it gets really, if people have questions and I'm wanting to see everybody, I want to be able to spend, quality time looking at each person's stuff, what they're doing, answer questions. And when you get more than 20 people, you can't really do that unless you stay 5 hours after. With 20, a lot of times you're staying, an hour and a half after class to answer questions and help out. So I kind of try to stop it at 20 and then revert to a different time frame for another class.
Yeah. I was working on the calendar for the classes and other things having to do with vaguerods.net website, and scheduling those classes out. And one thing we're doing to try and help people is one class will meet on Saturday mornings, and then maybe the next class that starts will be on Sunday afternoons, just to give people options about when the scheduling works best for them. We're finding out that a weekday evening works for some people, but not that many people. So one for Saturday morning, one for Sunday afternoon, looking out at the calendar ahead.
In this class also, same thing. There's a free range shadow blank. I can't talk today. Free range shadow blank offered for this class too. All of the 15 and 18-week courses, range shadow blanks they'll get. And it's not like everybody gets the same blank. We have a list of, different blanks for different types of fishing, different weight classes, yada, yada, yada. I go through each blank with them. They write down and they email me or text message me that model number out of a long list, and then Batson drop ships that blank to them. So it's not like everybody gets the same blank, because not everybody fishes. I've got people in the class, some are fly fishermen, some are freshwater, some are ocean. So you've got a variety of different types of fishermen. So I like it to where they can pick type of rod suited for what type of fishing that they're doing.
And you give them a list to choose from, correct?
Correct.
That's pretty dang handy.
So with the addition of that rod as part of the package deal, man, the value of this class is just tremendous. I mean, it's a very low price class to begin with for the number of hours of instruction and personal handholding that go into it. And then, you have an early bird special going on now that comes off of that price. And then you have a free rain shadow blank that goes in there, and you just couldn't ask for a better deal. And on top of that, people that need rod building stuff are able to get it on vaguerods.net at like way below MSRP. What we're finding is other sites that are having sales, for the most part, when they have a sale and we look at our everyday prices, we're still lower. So through the site vaguerods.net, people are able to get everything they need to build rods at just surprisingly low prices. So all of that together, just I feel good, and I know Tiffany does, that we're genuinely, honestly offering a lot of great value.
I try to keep it, cost low, because good Lord, rod building can get very expensive. And part of that reason is because it's highly addicting. That's the first thing I tell all the students. This is a highly addicting hobby to get into, craft. You're going to get addicted to it. And at first, nobody believes me. And then everyone starts saying, yeah, I can see the problem here. So I try to keep everything low, because you're going to have to constantly replenish the threads. You're going to have to constantly replenish your coatings. You make a rod one time, well, you want to make another rod, you got to get another rod. And if you have the prices so high, 3/4 of the people aren't going to be able to build rods because of how expensive it can get. So I try to keep the price as low as I can get it, as low as I can bring it down, so that somebody that doesn't make a whole lot of money can still build rods. And if they want to turn it into a business for themselves, they can turn around and make money off of, their rods that they build. And that's, that was my goal with that part. With the weaving, the first class, the 15-week or 18-week, whichever one you go, that is going to teach you all the basics that you need up to that point. Then you can turn around and take the 6-week rod weaving course to learn how to weave rods, make your own designs and all that stuff, and just have fun with it.
Absolutely. You got to have fun, but you got to make it so that, like you said, we're priced to the consumer instead of priced to the guy that's just trying to build a rod to fit into his lifestyle. You're gonna go anything and anywhere you want now, because of the fact that you can buy this stuff for pennies on the dollar compared to what everybody else is selling it for. Your dad sums it up perfect. You don't want to take a second out on your house to buy your rod.
And another thing we're finding, which we talked about last week here in this podcast, and that is we're finding that people are building businesses. Some people don't even know that yet when they start taking the class. They want to learn to build a rod for themselves, which is a great reason. But by the time the class is ended and they really know how to build rods, well, now they've got friends that want them to build rods.
Right.
and they want to build nice rods to give away to people they love, as gifts. And it doesn't take long before people are seeing their work and they're calling them up and going, hey, I need a rod. And they're in business. So a lot of people starting these classes don't know they're starting a business, but that's frequently the way it ends up. And it can be just a casual side hustle, or it can ultimately turn into a main gig. And so our business model, what Tiffany is doing here, really is engineered to help people do exactly that, from beginning to end of learning, and then on into their rod building career.
And we'll finish with this question that Matt has. Do you see it there?
Does the wrap customization affect the bend of the rod? Well, where you're doing your design is more at the, near the winding check before the first guide. And that part is pretty much a straight part. It's not a bend. If you're talking about the guides, you have to wrap the guides on it. So it really doesn't affect the bend. What will affect the bend is if you have that on the wrong part of the spinal, or if you have so much, globbing of the flex coat, little things like that. But for just wrapping, your guides on and your design, no, it doesn't affect the bend of the rod.
And then one more thing I'm going to ask you, and I'll kick back and listen to the answer. On a rod, is there a way to make it so you can see the spline, if you will?
On the rod, is there to make it so that you can see it while, after it's finished?
No, while you're building it.
Is there a way to make a rod so I see it when I'm building the rod?
The spline.
After I've found that spline, I don't make a mark of where it is. I'll find it and I'll have like one dot that tells me exactly straight up and down where it's at.
But that could be done, Captain Dave. Where she makes that dot, she could make multiple dots or dashes along the rod, and then coat over that. That could actually be done, and it might be help. And so you're working on opposite sides depending on whether you're building a rod for a conventional or bait cast reel, or building one for a spinning rod or reel. And then you throw in that acid wrap, and now you're doing a few things. One, you're not only bending the fibers of that rod, you're also twisting them, because you're forcing that pressure around the side, and then the spline gives you some strength to build around. That's why it's a big thing. So when you build an acid wrap, as you move down the rod, you are giving up that backbone. And so I've used them. They're fun. I myself, for those reasons, am not a great fan of acid wraps. And those are the detailed kind of technical reasons why. But that spine is an interesting thing. And yes, you make a good point, Captain Dave. It could be done if somebody just wanted to see where it is.
Yeah, that's all. I just want to see where it is. Mm-hmm. And Dave Burris said some blanks have more than one spline.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. He's right. Dave knows what he's doing. He's been doing this. Good Lord, I'm not going to give up our age.
Yeah. I already know the answers to some of these questions. I just like asking them because I know that this is a question somebody else is thinking of.
True. But, true. Hey, I'll give up my age. I'm 200 or 300 years old. I tell people.
Yeah, you're older than all of us.
Maybe put together.
Oh, yeah.
Fishing Matt Ryan asked, are more guides better or worse for any particular reason? It's all personal preference. There's no rhyme or reasons. If you have an 8-foot blank and you're doing 9 guides, if you have an 8-foot blank and you want to do 12 guides, it all barrels down to personal preference. I like doing the length for conventionals, the length of the guide plus one. If it's a spinner, I like doing, just the length of the guide, and that's how many guides I'm going to have for a spinner. But you can do more if you have the more newer type of guide train that like Batson, for instance, has. It requires more. But I mean, as far as which one is better, it's really more personal preference.
I have seen Tiffany kind of change the spacing between the guides, which may increase the number of guides by one on a rod, say, that has a really fast action, maybe in a certain part of the rod, like up near the tip. I've seen her adjust that number according to that.
Yeah, that's just all based on if they want a certain type of action or not. But like what I can't talk today, sorry. Fishing Matt Ryan was asking if it's better or worse. It's not. It's just a personal preference of what you want. But you can make it to where you can make it a little bit more of a heavier tip. You can make it, to where it's a heavier cast, just depending on the placement of it, how many guides you have on it, just all sorts of different things. But as far as it making it worse or better, that's personal preference. Some people it's like this. Some people like to have fast action tips. Some people want medium action tips. So for one person, it's worse for them to have a medium if they like a fast action. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It does. And the guide's basic function is to control the pressure along the entire length of the rod. So your number of guides and your placement of the guides is your way to control that exact function.
Well, on that note, gang, we are all done here today. Thank you for the great class on learning a little bit more about rods. Every single Thursday, I learn more about rods than I ever thought I needed to know. But
it's important in rod building.
I am stoked to have you guys with us, and you guys will be here with me next week, right?
Oh, every Thursday. You got me every Thursday.
If my feet are on land, I expect to.
All right, cool. All right, you guys. Well, thank you very much for the great lesson today. And thank you for all of you that watched today. I really appreciate all of you. And we will be with you again tomorrow. We have a great show with Captain Greg Cruz talking old time fishing out of Dana Point Harbor and beyond. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a